didn't see Pretty. I didn't see Pretty involved in this. I think she stayed at the den. I just wish I knew what this was. But no, Pretty was not involved, as far as I could tell. Were they protecting the den? The fact that Corky was involved in this is something that's making me view it in a whole different light. Corky's high-ranking, so is this stocky individual. You can see she's full of attitude. I even said it when she arrived at the den. I said, look at the way she struts. Was this female in some way, even accidentally, a threat to their den site? Just don't know. They're making their way back towards the den. If my guess is correct, they'll cut right once they've sniffed around here a bit more and go back along the path. There's a clear game path that runs along the side of this drainage line and pops out right at this waterhole corner, or where this dip is in the road. They should, if my guess is correct and they're going back to the den, they should cut right soonish. Everything that they're going to do, but we can hazard guesses. Oh, okay, back to the road. Alrighty then. Dean, in terms of asking about this behavior, you were wondering if they're checking to make sure that the injured hyena didn't scent mark. Possibly. I think it goes deeper than that. I think they were making sure that that injured hyena was not coming back in this direction. And you saw that the way she followed them for a while before changing her mind and moving off away from the den site. They're either checking that she's not still around. That's what makes me think they're trying to protect the den in some way. They came to sniff around where she was, made sure, followed her trail for a little bit before reassuring themselves that she had left and moving off. Which makes me think that this has something to do with the safety of their cubs or internal clan discipline. She's almost definitely, in my mind, a member of this clan. She's not an interloper. It would be so unlikely that a lone female would come wandering into the heartland of another clan's territory. Totally, totally unlikely. I'm sure that when we look back in our records, we're going to find that she comes from this clan. They're moving off to the right along the off-road track straight towards the den, and having participated in that rather savage attack, Corky's going to go straight back and check on her babies. There must be something to do with this den safety. Jenny agreed, completely completely agreed. It's the thing that I love about these live safaris, one of the things I love, is the fact that this is happening with all of us watching together. We're sharing this experience, and you are learning as much as I am about the animal's behavior as we go along. And the fact that it's happening right here as we speak adds a whole different dynamic to it. It's like watching a sports game live versus the recorded version. It's just different. And I certainly never expected this morning to go in this direction. We're moving straight towards the den. We'll catch up with them there. And it's hard sometimes. It's difficult to watch the interplay between the animals play out in that kind of way and go in that direction. We love them when they're cute, when the cubs are climbing trees and calling. This is a whole other aspect to them that we have to learn about. Notice I always approach this den site in low range. It's the same thing I did when we were in the middle of that hyena conflict, was to shift the vehicle into low range. It lowers the revs of the car, particularly when driving off-road, and just means that you lower the disturbance as well. Straight back to the den. On cue. I'll stop here because I'm blocking. If I carry on forward, I will block June's path. Oh, no, I'm just going to go that way. That's not what I expected to happen. They're walking straight past the den. This big stocky female has stopped. Screenshots, please. If we haven't got a nice one of her right side. Hello, little cub. Walking straight past the car. Covered in injuries around her front part of her body. That's because she was the primary attacker in that scenario. So those injuries were inflicted by the attacked hyena. Look at the power in her. She's huge. She might not be taller than Corky, but she's bulkier. And I also suspect, mind you, that she's younger, just by the amount of fur that she has around her. Whoever she may be, I think she's a strong candidate for the matriarch, either now or in the future. The fact that we haven't seen June's mother with the scar on her back also makes me question considerably what's happening within this clan dynamic. And I'm not talking a long period of absence, I just mean the last few days that I haven't seen June's mother. Valerie, you've sort of corrected yourself there, and you've said it may be a bit too anthropomorphic. And have I ever seen behavior within animals that mimics jealousy? And I actually don't think you're being too anthropomorphic. Yes, to an extent. They're not going to get jealous over an animal. Oh, I don't know. Hold on, Valerie. Let me think this answer through. Because yes, I have seen animals exhibit jealousy. And The example I'm going to use is mainly in primates, where one is getting attention from a high-ranking individual. She's going to lie down at the den. This is fascinating. That's not Corky. Corky's moved off. And unfortunately, I can't follow Corky because it's this dense vegetation. But they've probably gone to Gallagher Waterhole, or possibly to the Djuma Pan. This one's lying down. Valerie, yes, I've seen within primates is a good example, although maybe we're sort of moving towards the more anthropomorphic animals anyway, but where one high-ranking individual is paying more attention to the other, then another one tries to push its way in. And I've seen it with hyena cubs. In fact, we've all seen it with hyena cubs, where one is getting attention from an individual and the other one barges in to try and get involved. And that's not necessarily jealousy as we understand it, but it's certainly along a similar theme, along a similar line. And we saw it, I don't know if we could put it like this, but when female leopards are mating with a male and they follow, although I think that's more territorial, they follow the male into another female's territory. For example, what happened with Kwatile and Karula a couple of months ago, 3 months ago. She's gone to sleep at the den. She is not one of the mothers of the young cubs, but that doesn't mean she's not one of the mothers of the sub-adults. She is young though. No sign of Pretty, and no sign of the cubs. She's gone to sleep right at the entrance to that den. I think we're going to have to do a bit more thinking. I'm going to speak to Steph as well, see what he thinks about this whole scenario. There was a lot of speculation around what was going on when Scott witnessed the attack a couple of weeks ago. Let me move forward so that we've got one last view of her. Not going to help us at all, actually. But I'll stop here for a moment just to give us a change of scenery and see if there's any sign of any of the cubs, because at least we can see the entrance to the den site. I'm going to take my jacket off quickly while I'm here. Douglas, do I think that their actions were a way to reduce the number of members of the clan because of the drought and therefore competition for resources? That's an intelligent question, because hyenas do that. So clans do have internal conflicts, which then result in splits. And it depends on the environment that you're in, the ecosystem that you're in. For example, desert versus this low-veld bushveld that we're in. However, I don't necessarily think it would be in response to the drought in this instance, because the drought's actually working considerably to their advantage. So hyenas, for the most part, are quite good at existing without regular access to water, and their prey concentration has become much more concentrated actually around water holes. That and the fact that the lions are actually, I've mentioned before that the lions on Buffelshoek, both the Nkuhumas and the Talamati prides, have been killing buffalo basically every 3 days, because the buffalo have to wander through for access to water there. So I don't know. I don't think it's a way of reducing clan members. She could potentially be kicked out, and she might move off on her own. That's how new clans start. That is the way that it plays out. But I don't know any more than that. I mean, it's a possibility. It's as plausible as the other scenarios that I've come up with. The action appears to have died down at the den site, so I'm going to send you back over to Steph, and we will catch up with you in a moment.
And I know that I've dragged you away from all the excitement around that hyena den. I just want to show you this amazing tree. Tibbs is showing you now, it looks like a dead tree stump, something that is very common over here. In actual fact, this tree is not dead at all. It is growing, and that is a very typical growth form of this particular tree, the bushveld resin tree. If I can ask Tebs to tighten up on those leaves again. One of the defining characteristics is the herringbone venation, that's that parallel veins that you see on the leaf of the bushveld resin tree, and the very densely hairy leaves. They've got incredibly velvety leaves, and this tree makes the most wonderful homes for bush babies, lizards, a very popular home for the girdled lizard, my favorite lizard. You quite often find them in here, and for bush babies, the little nocturnal primates that you have. But there's a bit of a dark side as well. My very first tracker, a guy called Richard in Dubani, and one of my best friends of all time, used to make bird lime from this tree. What bird lime is a very sticky substance that you use to catch birds. And what he used to do is, when he was tending his father's cattle, there wasn't always a lot of protein going on at the house, and the herd guys used to have to make do with what they could get out of the bush. And what he used to do is he used to come and tap the sap out of this tree. You make a small incision in the bark, and this milky fluid comes out. He then used to slow cook the sap over a period of a few hours, and what it does is it turns this milky sap into this very tacky, almost like well-chewed chewing gum, if I could give you an example, like a press stick almost. And then he used to wrap this tacky substance around a stick and go and place a stick at a watering point, at a pan. And any bird that landed on the stick got itself all covered in this tacky substance, and then he'd come and harvest his birds and then cook them up in a stew for lunch. Now, while that's unnecessary for us to do nowadays, in a place like he grew up, where it was quite rough to find enough protein to feed oneself during a day, he used to make do. And he died an old man a couple of years ago, and although he had no teeth in his mouth, that had nothing to do with his bird lime project, and had everything to do with his infatuation with sweets. And that's the bushveld resin tree, one of the very few that I've found here on Djuma. They're fairly common further south of here, but I haven't found one here. This one's right next to the road, and I wanted to share it with you. And that's that for the bushveld resin tree. What has been amazing is, during the time that you've been looking with the Rahina, is the fact that it's clouded over. Clouds are fairly high. It's actually cooled down. And I think it's actually colder than it was this morning. Now, we are going to link back to Jamie. Hyenas are still busy at it.
After all of that intense action, it's actually quite a relief to return to a relatively peaceful den site. And I wonder if June feels the same way. Come to have a rest at the entrance to the den. And I wonder what this little sub-adult... mischief. Why did you put your head straight behind the tree? I wonder what this little cub learned from all of that. What was going on in its head when that action happened? What was it learning? Well, certainly don't put a foot out of place in this clan. It was probably top of the list. And now it's bedtime, just like that. On from savage creatures attacking each other, and I use that tentatively. I mean, in this mind space that they were in. Hyenas are not savage creatures any more than anything else is out here. It is a very important lesson to remind yourself that they are wild animals. And as for this one, I have no idea what her story is. But whatever was happening there, and it's one of the big reasons why you don't interfere, is you have no idea if it is for the good of the clan or not. And most likely the fact that it involved high-ranking females protecting a den site, it probably was. We just don't know why. Thank you, Chris Rogue. I think you're right. I think Chris Rogue may well be right. I suspect that this attacker is the matriarch, and Chris Rogue is telling me that it's Bella's mom. Bella, for those of you unfamiliar, was the oldest cub when I first started working here in July last year at the Philemon's Cutline Den. We see Bella occasionally moving about, and interestingly, Bella, the cub of this hyena, has been the one that we saw, that sub-adult following the attacked hyena in Scott's sighting. So Bella's mother was the attacker in that sighting as well, apparently. Chris Rogue, I think I agree with you. That is, to me, the strongest theory. I suspected that this one was the matriarch, just watching her behavior as she entered into this dead site. And I know that we've mentioned before that June's mother might be the matriarch, but I was starting to doubt that over the last few weeks, having watched the clan interactions. I wasn't quite ready to throw forward any theories until we'd seen something conclusive. My suspicion is that this is fairly conclusive. Now, the question is, how does this hyena relate to Corky? I think it's fascinating, however, to figure this out. And if it is Bella's mom, Bella, for new viewers, is just over a year old. That would mean that Bella's mom could also be due to have cubs fairly soon. And I hesitate to be the initiator in this, but I think she needs a name, this individual, because of all the strong characters we have met at this den site, she appears to be the strongest. And it might be the easiest way of keeping track and identifying her. I don't want to call her matriarch or something like that, because as we've seen, or as I've mentioned, that can change. Amazing how much you can learn by spending time patiently at hyena dens. Trying to think of all the names that are popping into my head aren't suitable. I'll give it some thought. And of course, you're always more than welcome, as well as our loyal viewers, to also give it some thought as well. I think she needs one. Nice question coming through. We had incredible sounds coming from that attack, and interestingly, what seemed to have broken it, or at least coincided with the break in the tensions when that fight broke up, was the whooping contact call of the attacked hyena. And James Richards, you were wondering if each clan has its own unique contact call. Not to us, not really to us. To us, we hear ooh. Ooh, sorry, hyena. You need to do that quite so loudly. Luckily, there was no reaction there. I don't really want to stir up any more trouble. And the reason that I thought that might stir up trouble is, to us, it sounds the same. To them, it is unique. It is like voices. It's like me shouting versus Brian shouting. I don't know what we're shouting in this imagined scenario. Well, let's imagine it's something fun. But either way, yes, their voices are different to each other. And they recognize, and I'm not saying that necessarily that a clan has a specific unique call, but they recognize each individual's call within their clan. So they'll know as soon as they're foreign voices. It's almost like different accents, in a way. And I wouldn't be surprised, actually, if a clan's calls sound more similar to each other than they do to other individuals in different clans. One thing about hyena dens is they really force you to be specific about what you're trying to say. You can tie yourself in knots talking about them. And you, big girl, what was going through your head through all of this? What was it all about? Protecting the essence of the clan, I guess, in whatever manner that entailed. Marianne has suggested, all the way from Arkansas, that we call her Xena, the matriarch, and the warrior princess. I definitely like that. It works because that is essentially what hyenas are, or females at least. There is that aspect to their personality. My brain's still a little bit frazzled from what happened earlier. Now that it's all calmed down, the intensity the adrenaline starts to ebb. And what Brian and I were just discussing, which is something that you guys obviously can't experience, was the smell of that moment. And I'll never ever forget it. It was a combination of hyena, that wet dog musk smell, and then fear. And I swear we can smell fear. We must be able to. Fear and blood. It was one of the most intense smells I have smelt in a long time. And by saying I think we can smell fear, I'm not talking some kind of supernatural extrasensory perception. I mean quite literally somewhere in our evolutionary biology, we must have been able to smell increased adrenaline. And obviously much like with humans, where if you get scared you start to sweat, your sweat glands start secreting. I think animals do something very similar. They must exude some kind of scent. Because that was a smell that instantly said to me, fear. And that unfortunately is something that we can only describe to you in that experience. I think I'm going to leave this hyena den now. We've spent a considerable period of time this morning with them. We've learnt an enormous amount about them, even if some of it is a little bit of guesswork involved. And I think that the action is over now. I think that they are done for the day. Corky's wandered off into the drainage line to find probably somewhere to rest. And the rest of them have dispersed, and only our interesting hyena female remains at the den to guard whatever's happening there. I don't know whether she has cubs or not, but we'll find out in the next few days. It's the wonders of the live safaris. You don't have to go home back to wherever you are at the end of them. You can keep watching. I'm going to leave the den for now, and I'm going to send you back to Steph while I do.
Welcome back after what seems to have been quite an astounding hyena sighting for you. And it feels like you've been gone for hours with Jamie. Myself and Tebs have literally just been combing the roads all the way from the gates, basically driving every road very slowly back from there to see if we can pick up any fresh tracks of anything that's been walking around. And I must be honest, I haven't seen a single fresh cat track on any of the roads that we've done today. I'm not too sure why. My only feeling is that it's probably due to the season and the luck that predators seem to have in the dry season, and on top of which there's a lot of babies around at the moment. So they're not having to move very far to find food at all. Although I would have expected with the rain that we had yesterday for at least leopard to be a little bit more proactive in marking their territories. Quite often the rain will wash their marks, their scent marks, off of the trees and the bushes. And you've noticed, if you've watched them leopard in the park, they're very active at walking up to bushes and rubbing their faces on them, and scent marking with urine, even in some places grabbing bushes and hugging bushes to get their scent on to it. I'm hoping that we pick up some or other sign of Karula or Vimvula where we are at the moment. But not really an area where we see Tingana too much. We're on Gallagher Road. Watch out here, Tibbs. An elephant has bent this tree over the car, and I have no doubt it's going to shoot back. Here we go. And smack Tibbs in the face. Got to be quite careful with that. Alright, we've got what sounds like an eastern scimitar bull here. Okay, so we've got the scimitar bull at the top of this tree here, Tiff. And see if we can get you its call. There we go. Just as we got it, it flew off, but at least you get to see it. That was the eastern scimitar bull, for those of you who are keeping bird lists. And what's quite interesting for me about that bird is not only does it have that heavily recurved scimitar-like bill, which it uses to probe holes in wood of trees to get insects and grubs out of the trees, but it sleeps vertically. Most birds you'd think would sleep on a horizontal plane or in a nest. These birds perch, very similar to swifts. They perch against the tree, usually when elephants pulled a piece of branch off. They perch against the tree and they sleep vertically, tail down, head up, perched close onto the tree. And quite often, well, I found them at least perched like that quite often. You just got to know where to look. And at night time with a spotlight, they're the easiest to find at night time. But eastern scimitar bull, not as gregarious as the red-billed or green wood hoopoo. These you usually only find singularly and in pairs. Now there we've got two male violet-backed starlings. Let's see if Tibbs can get it before they fly away. And there we've got a beautiful look. There we go. Tibbs just got that violet-backed starling. Don't forget about updating your bird list. That's a male violet-backed starling. And in contrast to those wattled starling that we saw a little bit earlier today, you can see that the starlings definitely have some of the most striking colors. That violet metallic color that the starling had, contrasted to the white chest. See, the one male just flew off a little bit into the bush. Virtually impossible to get. He's standing on a branch there now. Let's see if we can get one last. Here he might come out there for you. There's both of them are flitting around over there, obviously vying for the attention of a lady. That's the only reason why you'd find two males together like that. There you go, just next to the tree. Just to the left of the, there we go, onto the, and that characteristic flick of the wing that is characteristic of starlings in general, and I've seen it on some shrikes as well, but that characteristic of flicking that wing like that is just to flash the color off of that wing. The wings are iridescent, and when he flashes his wing like this, it's to flash that color that he's got, mainly in sunlight. We've got too much sunlight over here. For those of you just joining us or new to the show, the violet-backed starling come all the way to us when the equatorial forests that they live in Central Africa experience their deluge, which is around about now from Christmas time to March. And it's better or more energy efficient for them to come down here and feed on insects and have their babies here than it is to stay in the rainforest and try and stay warm and basically try and find food when it's busy raining meters upon meters of rain. So totally clouded up, which is quite nice. I must say I'm enjoying the overcast weather that we are having. I just want to have a look and see if these weaver nests are active. An observation James made just the other day was that the weavers started to build their nest, and on very many places where normally you'd expect bunches of weavers to be, the weavers have actually stopped building nests and have moved on. The two different weavers here, we have got what looks like spectacled weavers, or the remnants of the spectacled weavers. That's the two light colored nests, and then the scraggly, messy, dark nest that you see at the bottom right hand side of your screen, that is the nest of a red-headed weaver. Of all the weavers, them and well, they're actually my favorite, and they're only my favorite because they have the most striking red head on top of a pale body. Let's see if I can find one in a bird book for you, so I can show you the two birds that have made those nests while we wait to see if they're actually in attendance. So this here is the red-headed weaver. You can see why I like him so much. A beautifully colored bird, red-headed weaver. We'll go back to the nest and I'll show you which is their one now. It's a very messy, scraggly nest with a long entrance tube. And then the other nest is the spectacled weaver. That's this one. Also another striking bird. My two favorite weavers, spectacled weaver and red-headed weaver. Let's go back to their nests. I'll show you once again how these birds just build this most amazing thing with apparently no intelligence whatsoever. They've managed to construct these beautiful nests. The one at the bottom, center of your screen, right at the bottom, dark brown, almost camouflaged. That's the red-headed weaver's nest, and then the one above it, or the two above it at least, the spectacled. The males are the ones that build the nest. The females play no part in the nest building. They play a huge part in nest destruction though. If the female doesn't enjoy the nest, she pulls it to pieces and the male starts to rebuild all over again. And in the case of the masked weavers, a male has been known to build up to 50 nests, 50 nests in a season before the lady is trying to impress is happy enough to lay her eggs in it. And the reason why they build such elaborate nests is that nesting sites, or prime nesting sites, safe nesting sites, are incredibly difficult to find. They're hot property. Generally speaking, only a few birds can actually build nests that are safe. Very many birds keep their nests on the ground or build scraggly, twiggy nests where wind blows their babies out quite often. But the weavers and the woodpeckers are definitely, and the barbets are definitely birds that can excavate their own nests or build their own nests, and very safe, well-protected nests from the sun, from the heat, exposure, wind, predators, you name it. For the rest, they have to fight it out amongst themselves for the leftover nests from woodpeckers and whatnot. morning, James. Do we get flamingos here? Pink flamingos. Flamingos turn pink when they eat a specific, or part of their diet is inclusive of I'm not too sure what compound it is actually, but they turn from a whitish color, light pinkish color, to that pink that we so often see in pictures, only when their diet contains the compound that they need. And then we get the lesser flamingo here, which is the more common of the two. The lesser, you get the lesser and the greater, with the lesser flamingo here, the algae feeding flamingo, being the more common. And although I have heard reports of flamingos being seen in the Kruger National Park, they're not that common. The first place that you really get flamingos here in any great numbers would be the Mekharikari Pans in southern Botswana. There you can see up to 2 million birds nesting on their distinctive clay domed nests. So not too far away from here, within a day's drive, you can be at the Mekharikari Pans from here. I've got a pesky fly on Nemesis that I've picked up here from one of the bushes. I hope that answered your question about the flamingo. So while they're not uncommon to be seen in the Kruger National Park, definitely the first breeding places that you get of them in any great numbers would be in the Mekharikari Pans, southern Botswana. Some of the largest salt flats in the world. Jimmy's asked a nice personal question. Do I prefer walking or driving? To me, that's they're two so different from one another. I'm naturally very curious, and so walking for me definitely unlocks a few more options for me, in that I get to stick my face into any number of different nooks and crannies out here. Walk drainage lines you can't drive next to, but of course seeing spectacles on foot is a much more difficult thing to do. I think it all depends. You know, if you do too much walking, you miss driving and you miss being in close proximity to leopard and to lion, and being in amongst elephant herds that don't really bother you too much. But walking definitely gives you a new perspective. You feel plugged in, you feel more alive, you feel more part of the system here. So I think it just depends on my mood, really, much more than anything else. Too much of any one thing and I start getting bored and frustrated. So we're still on. Back onto our question with the weavers. Leslie has asked, how long does it take those weavers to build their nest? It takes them a couple of days, Leslie. They'll get the majority of it done in a day or two, maybe 3 days. So it doesn't take too long. They actually build it incredibly quick. They're very industrious birds. But it's still 2 to 3 days before they got anything that remotely resembles a nest. And they'll constantly be doing maintenance on their nest, taking out this piece of grass, replacing it, putting another weave on this and that and the next thing. They hardly ever sit still, these weavers. I must be honest, they could teach a few people a lesson or two in how to stay busy. While I'm not concentrating on where we're driving. Orange weavers, Pam has asked, all the way from Mississippi. Pam, not that I can recall, the closest orange weaver that we get would be one of the two weavers whose nests we've just seen. The red-headed weaver has got an orangey tinge to his red head, and the spectacled weaver has also an orangey tinge to their feathers, but not orange. Not that I can remember, no. And here we have some zebra. So finally we have something with a heartbeat to show you. Some plain zebra. One very pregnant mom. Gee whiz. Oh, look at that massive belly. A zebra, as opposed to a wildebeest, in terms of the grasses, very specialized diet. The zebra can eat almost any type of grass. Kirsty has just let me know that Jamie showed you this pregnant zebra the other day. And while it's not uncommon for them to have twins, it's usually they just have one baby. Pregnant for, as far as I know, roughly 16 months. And the baby is born precocial, in other words, with the ability to definitely get up and get going very quickly after birth. But talking about that, let's quickly cross over to Jamie. She's got a vulture that she wants to show you, and hopefully doesn't fly away. And we'll wait here with these zebra for you.
For me, there is something hugely iconic about the silhouette of a vulture sitting on top of a dead tree and surveying the land beneath it. And this white-backed vulture is providing us with a very picturesque scene. And you see, in this type of weather, with the clouds the way that they are, you see lots of vultures almost grounded. Now, it can still fly, but for the most part, they rely on the hot air currents coming off the earth to thermal around and to spot carcasses to scavenge off. At the moment, he can't do that because there aren't any thermals. So although he could fly up, it would not be the most energy efficient way of doing so. So essentially, when they hit a hot air current and a thermal, all they've got to do is open their wings and let the air currents carry them and ride them. Whereas at the moment, to fly, he'd have to flap his wings to lift a considerable bulk off that tree and into the skies. They can do it. Have a bit of a ruffle of the feathers there. At the moment, I think he's just keeping his incredible sharp gaze, looking around for any other birds that might have discovered thermals or possibly might even have discovered a kill site. And the reason we haven't seen that many vultures recently on these live safaris is because, as I mentioned, the Talamati pride as well as the Djuma pride have been spending a lot of time on Buffelshoek, and they've been taking down a buffalo once every 3 days. So most of the vultures are clustered around that area and around where the Birmingham boys have been. Once one vulture spots another, it's a sort of a chain reaction that then leads to more of them circling around and finding that kill. And then they just retire to the treetops in the evenings close to where their meal has been. But they will also be an animal, much like our spotted hyena friends, that thrives in these drought conditions. The only big caveat to that is the spread of anthrax. Now, we've spoken a lot about the vulture's incredible immune system, but they can be, at this time of year, they can be vectors of disease. So what a vulture will do as soon as it's eaten off a carcass is it will go and have a bath in a dam or a river and wash away all of those particles, and that does in its own way contribute to the spread of anthrax. That being said, it's all part of a natural process. So anthrax is a naturally occurring disease, and it spreads naturally in populations. Oh, it's getting mobbed there by what look like starlings. One of the braver birds, or is that a drongo? No, I think it's a starling. No, it's a starling. Drongos and starlings are usually the main aggressors, and sometimes lilac-breasted rollers. I'm fairly certain that the starlings had a nest there at one point. Now, the vulture's not really a threat to their chicks. They're not often, I would say it's highly unlikely that it's going to go and raid their nests. They are raptors, though. They are birds of prey, and I think that starlings don't really distinguish between the different raptor species. Although if that were a harrier hawk or a gymnogene, they would be far fiercer in their attack of him. It was almost a half-hearted mobbing attempt compared to some of the ones we've seen. Judy? You were asking if a Birchall's cuckoo was calling in the background. Let's just sit and listen for a moment. Yes, Judy, well done. How do I know that it's a Birchall's cuckoo? Because I can see it. Unfortunately, it's going to be very difficult for us to be able to show you, but let us try. It is sitting. This is going to be tricky for Brian. It's right behind a log. Well done, Judy. Very well done. I'm fairly certain that's it hiding over there. So there's a fallen tree that's growing slightly horizontally, and it's tucked away in the bush behind that. I'll direct Brian as we go. That horizontal, have you got it there, Brian? Well done. Thank you. There. Well done. That, I'm fairly certain, is the tail of a Birchall's cuckoo. I think. Hard to tell. It could turn out to be a grey go-away bird. But I think that is what you were hearing, that coo-coo-coo-coo-coo-coo-coo-coo sound. And for those of you listening to the other bird calls, that call, black-crowned chagra. Also calling is the brown-crowned chagra that makes the call that goes. There's drongos calling, quite sharp calls. There's a crested barbet trilling. The orange-breasted bushshrike. And as always, our ever-present hornbills, digging through dung and having a wonderful time doing it. Red-billed hornbill there. Lots of bird calls happening. Oxpeckers, weavers, I can hear. What else can I hear? All kinds of birds calling throughout. I love sitting and just listening to the various bird calls. And after the rain, as we've mentioned before, Gerda mentioned it yesterday, that it's this, they all sound very happy, and they are happy. And immediately after the rain, we saw more bursts in population in terms of insect species. So for the birds, they are having an absolutely wonderful time. There's another one calling. That is a chin spot batis. I can hear a hoopoo calling. Hoop, hoop. Hoop, hoop. Hoop, hoop, hoop. Awesome. Lots and lots of bird life occurring around here. And my lips are no longer as chapped as they were, so my whistles no longer sound like pathetic puffs of air. Viewers who missed it, I've been attempting to imitate bird calls over the last few days, and I don't quite have Brian's level of skill in that respect. Brian's far better at it than I am. But I was even worse than usual because my lips were all dry. I'm trying to just get a view of the Birchall's cuckoo as we go around the corner. Let's see if we can spot it here. It's very much... oh, no, I was wrong. Sorry, Judy. My mistake. I thought I saw it fluttering, but I have been fooled. And as you know, I would never lie to you, so I'll be honest about it. It's a grey go-away bird that was hiding behind that tree. It is not a Birchall's cuckoo. But you never know, Judy. It may well have been a Birchall's cuckoo that we heard calling. You can hear a hoopoo as well. Whoop, whoop. Oh well. You win some, you lose some, I guess. Whoop, whoop. Okie dokie. I'm going to carry on. I'm going to send you back across to Steph, who is still with his zebra.
So unlike almost any of the other hoofed animals that we found out here, zebra are supremely able to move very quickly from one grazing area to another and eat a large volume of the food available in that particular area very quickly, which means that they can utilize flushes of growth that come out. Now, unlike ruminants who have to stick around in that area for a long time, which obviously attracts attention, zebra can move into an area, eat all the grass that they need to in that particular area, and move off before their presence gets known by lion. And in this area, it's actually quite a useful strategy. Lion only take about 14% of the zebra population out here in the Kruger National Park. 14%. Other areas in Africa, it's very different. Up to 80% of the food eaten by hyena can be that of zebra, but here it only accounts for 14%. Probably buffalo, knowing the line that I do here. Have a look at that zebra. Now, according to the book that I was just reading about zebra, all the horses in Africa reached their peak about 25 million years ago. And even though there's 3 different species of zebra, or 3 different subspecies of zebra in South Africa, they are the vestigials of populations that were at their absolute peak about 25 million years ago. Quite interesting to think it's such a highly evolved animal has battled in the face of all the increasing speciation amongst ruminants, and that's exactly where the most of their pressure came from, is that ruminants, which include wildebeest, impala, giraffe, for instance, are out competing them. Much speculation, of course, as to why they have stripes. I like to believe that rather than some massively involved system of anything, that it just looks nice. And striped partners were more favorable than plain partners, where and when possible. And that's why the zebra are stripy today rather than not stripy. Horses in general, or asses or equids in general across the world, are not striped, and that's because most of them live in quite harsh environments which necessitate a shaggier coat. Well, when you've got shaggier coats, you can't have the crisp, clean lines that you have with a short coat. But here you can, or in Africa you can, at least all the way up to the equator. And so we have striped horses here. Nice, easy answer. And what we're looking there at is the herd stallion. Generally, herd sizes here are 1 stallion to a couple of females, usually 4, 5, up to 10 females. Males will aggressively defend their harem of females against other intruders and will kick and bite at one another furiously. Why that zebra is walking in the branch over there is that the leaves of that combretum has offered some protection to the grasses that are growing under it. I'm just going to go forward a little bit just so we can get into the clearing. So we got a better view of them eating. Now, although zebra are able to eat coarse grass and a lot of it, much better than anything else, they'll eat almost any grass that they come across, not only the coarse grasses, and they'd prefer to eat the better tasting grasses, and the better tasting grasses in the Sabi Sands almost all occur in shade. And that's exactly what that zebra is going after at the moment. It's going after the grasses growing in the shade of the trees, grasses that haven't been burned to an absolute crisp by the drought that we've been having over the last couple of weeks. Or this year, I should say, not even the last couple of weeks. This is a dry year. And will continue to be a dry year. I think we've almost run out of time to fill up the subterranean water reserves for this year. Our rain is generally from the end of December all the way to the beginning of March. Not a very big window. We're in the first week or two of it at the moment. We're hoping, holding thumbs, that it ends up being a little bit closer to our average, which is between 400 and 600 mils of rain per year. About 1.5 feet. Exactly, Jim. You've just made a comment that the zebra shouldn't be as affected by the drought, and you're 100% right. That they are more drought resistant than many other animals. In actual fact, the most drought resistant animal that I know of belongs to the equids, and that's the common donkey, the donkey that we are all so used to seeing. They are some of the most drought resistant animals on the face of the planet. So absolutely, Jim, good observation there. They will absolutely be more drought resistant than what the ruminants are. Ruminants are finding it tough at the moment, where zebra are able to crop right almost down to the root level and almost all the way up into the inflorescence of grasses, and be able to digest patches of grass relatively quickly, making the most of anything that does come up and flush around little rainstorms like we had yesterday. There will be a flush. They'll be able to utilize that flush to maximum regard, whereas ruminants are hampered by the speed of their digestive processes. And before the sun burns away that flush, we just got a message through from Sharon. I can't remember the first part of your Twitter handle there, Sharon. It didn't come through that clearly on the radio, but you've mentioned through to us that the embryo in a zebra starts off black and then starts getting stripes as it develops further. So it would seem that it is a black horse with some white stripes on. I think that's what you were trying to get to, which is fine. And awesome, because there is a debate as to whether a zebra is black with white stripes or white with black stripes. I always thought it was the other way around, because if you have a look on the inside of their legs, they're almost all white. The black stripes start gradually from their legs and from their bellies, and then move into solid, very crisp lines onto their flanks and across their backs. But if they're embryonics, or embryos I should say, and not embryonics, if the embryos are black and later develop the white stripes, then a black horse with white stripes it is. These zebra, I don't know if these zebra are going to end up at Gallagher Pan. They can actually walk the most unbelievable distances to get to water. Remember when I was working on the other side of the Kruger National Park, it was common for zebra to walk up to 60 kilometers in one day to go and visit water and then go back to their feeding grounds. 30 kilometers from where we were seeing zebra in the morning, they'd all of a sudden arrive at a dam in the afternoon, and then you'd find them back feeding again there by sunset, 30 kilometers away. So they're able to cover massive distances. This little foal is busy giving himself a nice scratch on this fallen down tree. It did seem like they, like me, are a magnet for parasites. Ticks and flies in particular. Having a good scratch there just gets rid of all of them. Now up 5,000 miles away on the plains of the Serengeti, obviously being right on the equator, or just 5 degrees off of the equator, they have a lot of direct sunlight throughout the year. The temperature is also moderate and very warm. They have a lot of rain there, and because of geological history, there is lots of very fertile volcanic soils there and very few hills. And all of those factors together make the circumstance available for large numbers of zebra to accumulate. And on the plains of the Serengeti, you can get up to 1 million zebra, 1 million zebra that walk in a rough circle from the Serengeti into the Masai Mara, and then from the Masai Mara back into the Serengeti on a year-long trek that's probably around about 1,000 miles long. Part of the big migration. Them and wildebeest are famous for it. You would see many documentaries on the Great Migration in Tanzania and Kenya. Doesn't happen here in the Kruger National Park. Herd sizes are not that big here because we have hills which break up herds and fragment herds, obviously different zones. We've got a lot more tree cover here which covers the grass. We don't have direct sunlight all year round because we are below the Tropic of Capricorn, and we don't have that much rain either. So all of those factors that we don't have make for quite fragmented zebra herds, and we don't get these large numbers of zebra that occur. Now the stallion has decided he's going to have a scratch. Just going to reverse a little bit so that we can get to see him having his scratch there on the tree. Looks like it's the exact height for him to get right up onto his back. Having a good time. It's gonna get right in there, it looks like. There we go. Finished his scratch. Now time for the other side. Round about his neck. You can see elephants push down one of these combretums and it's created a branch with a particular bend to it that he's just utilizing over there to scratch his mane. They are favored by, there he goes, it's finished. They are favored by oxpeckers. You do find oxpeckers absolutely on zebra. He's decided to move off, and I think it's a good time for us to carry on going and seeing what we can find. Today, large mammals and I have been avoiding one another. It's just my karma for today. And hopefully broke my bit of a mammal drought seeing that zebra. And I think while myself and Tebs carry on the Buffels of Cutline, it would be a good idea to send you through to Jane.
Been on the Kudu search again, driving the drainage lines of Nyala Road South and Vulture's Nest Road. No sign of them though. I think they're all hiding out in the thick vegetation. Now, I've mentioned that I'm searching for them over and over, and when I see them I'm fairly certain it's the same group that I'm seeing. And it's what we've learned from that, or what I've personally learned from that, and what you can take away as well, is that kudu, I don't know if it's a pregnancy thing, but kudu actually move in relatively small circles, at least at this time of year. I'm not sure if it's because all of them are so pregnant. I haven't seen them at the moment, but I've seen their tracks all over the road. So they are around. And incidentally, as I've been doing that, I've been observing the Nyala herd that is around these drainage lines. And I'm fairly certain as well, just by the fact that you've got the same number of individuals, the same sort of dynamics of sub-adults, adults, those combinations, they work in a very similar way to the kudu. Something that we get familiar with, hello Nyala, thank you for popping up at that point. Something that we get familiar with around camps. You see the same in Nyala around camps for years, but you don't really think of in terms of the bigger scale of things. I don't know, it's just something interesting that I've learned that I thought I'd share with all of you. The same applies for this little group of Nyala. Hello girls, I think we saw you yesterday afternoon where we desperately tried to show the viewers one of the little ones dashing about, and you weren't very cooperative then. Yeah, I think that's the little one that was dashing about. They were hiding behind the bushes yesterday. They've been a bit more cooperative now, but they are entirely reliant on moving through this thick vegetation. They're mostly reliant on their, there you go, you're doing it again. Playful little things. So as I said, reliant more on their hearing and their sense of smell in this dense vegetation. And on the subject of, that was pure joy, that little skip. It's playing. Nyala do that. We've seen the baby wildebeest do it as well. And of course, important within that play behavior is the coordination and the skills that they learn. I was on a different subject tack before I got distracted by this Nyala fooling around, being a goof. It is big a goof. Silly thing. Yes, animal senses. Back to Sandblaster's question. So Sandblaster, you've heard that animals, or that determined not to let me answer this question. Sorry, Sandblaster, I'll be with you in a moment. He's skipping around like a mad thing. Rejoicing in the rain. Look at it go. It's like it's running a little obstacle course. Yay! I think if I could move like an Nyala, I would as well. I'd also do this. Barrel about. Testing the dexterity of my legs. Whee! Running circuits. Maybe this is the new fitness, the new craze. They're losing all of their festive season weight. And back up the same path. Under the weeping wattle. Back around. Are you going to go back through the drainage line? Nope. Oh, you cut the corner that time. And back under the weeping wattle. Back around. Oh, getting tired now. Oh, done. I quite appreciate the other Nyala that just ignore it. Back in the opposite direction. Down into the drainage line. Up the drainage line. And back around. And under the weeping wattle. And skipping around that way. I'm getting tired just looking at it. And back into the drainage line. Oof, you're going to slip. You're going to fall down, little one. Under the weeping wattle. And hopping over the log. It's like a show jumper. All the other Nyala are just watching the goings on. Oof, you tired yet? Or are you going to go the other way around? Nope, just dizzy. Changing direction. Silly thing. Yep. Must be an exercise regime. The adults looking on sedately and walking with dignity. I love watching young antelope do that. It's not even a baby, really. I mean, it's a sub-adult female that's dashing about like a maniac. Full of the joys. just like the birds. Yep. Is it time to feed yet? Breakfast yet? No? Yep, breakfast. Full of joy, just like all of the birds that are calling, which finally brings me back to Sandblaster's question. Now that our Nyala has calmed down and started behaving like a rational Nyala. Sandblaster, you've heard that birds' eyesight is better than humans, and you were wondering what animal in the bush has the best eyesight out of all of them. Birds are high up on the list. Something like a vulture, they have incredible binocular vision, or the birds of prey that hover around, things like falcons, their eyesight is incredibly good. Even the doves and the pigeons see, and I was discussing this with Vian yesterday, we were trying to work out if they almost see in slow motion, because it's like us seeing a faster frame rate in the way that they process the things that they see. Can't remember the exact terminology, but they essentially see in double speed, if that makes sense. And I wonder whether everything looks slower or faster to them. Either way, they see in a greater amount of detail than we do. That's something that considerable studies have been researched into. So I would say that in terms of their eyesight, that's fairly top of the list. Other animals that might have very good eyesight, something like a boomslang, the snakes that hunt in trees. In its own way, a chameleon as well for spotting movement. Then certain insects which have eyesight in an interesting way because they see different spectrums of light. Now what are you doing? Why are you headbutting everybody? Loopy, I tell you. Completely nuts. Yay, I like that idea. So these Nyala have been much more cooperative than they were yesterday. And Pam has suggested that the little one is putting on a show for the camera. He or she. I'm going to hazard a guess, judging by the headbutts, that it's a he. Just a very young he who hasn't quite got its horns yet. Although I've seen females headbutt each other before. They exhibit the same behaviors. Interesting to watch, though. Really interesting to watch. I like that, though. Show for the camera. And they're all showing signs of being a little bit joyful. Here's our little troublemaker. Oh, no. Look at this. Females playing. They're all playing now. I thought it was a male. I think I'm wrong. Sorry. I retract that statement. I think it's females playing. I've seen them do this before in gardens where they start to headbutt each other gently like males do when they're sparring. They've all started now. Hornbills, you're making a noise wherever you are. And who knew Nyala could be so full of fun and high-spirited? And if you look a little bit to the left, there's a youngster that looks a little bit confused by all of this. Sort of standing, it's much smaller than the others. Oh, but there's chaos now. That's the little one that I was talking about. Oh, no, it's joining in. Joining in. A little bit of a hop, skip, and a jump. Possibly trying to duck out of the way of the others. What are you doing, you crazy creatures? And it's really nice to just watch them having fun. And that is what they're doing. They're having fun. They're playing. I'm sure you can hear the hornbills. I can't see them from my perspective. Oh, they've flown away. They were right over our heads. I was a little bit worried about the danger of them dropping some kind of bomb on my head, or Brian's, in the form of defecating on us. Happened to me before. So, within that play that they're doing where they're headbutting each other, there's also a little bit of rubbing their pre-orbital glands on each other as well. Awesome sighting. It's been one of the most enjoyable Inyala sightings I've had, actually. I've seen them do this in gardens before. I don't think I've seen them do it in the wild. Not to this degree, not where the whole group of them joins in. They are moving off though. I think playtime's over and the business of serious eating has started. Very cool. Get all kinds of special moments in the bush if you stop and watch for an extended period of time. All kinds of wonderful things. I don't think we're going to get another view of them. The road curves away from them, and as we've mentioned quite a few times, we're not off-roading because of the drought situation. We're not really moving off-road unless absolutely necessary. Only for high-profile animals. So unfortunately, as much fun as that Nyala sighting was, I don't think they count. I know they don't count. Still hugely entertaining to sit and watch. As we come up to the end of our sunrise safari, I wanted to just have quite a serious chat after that hyena sighting that we had. And I want to just chat to all of you because, especially for new viewers, bear in mind, and before I say this, there's a caveat to this. I'm not saying don't name the animals. I think it's wonderful that we name them. I think we learn far more about them through naming them. But I want to put out a little bit of a warning and say, when you name them, and it's something that I've learned as well, you do form a serious attachment to them. And I know our regular viewers will be very familiar with this. I'm not saying it's not a good thing to name them. I'm not at all. I'm saying that bear in mind that in 2 years' time, when you're still watching Safari Live, a hyena sighting like the one that we had today, that could have been November that was being attacked. And at that point, regular viewers will know that wonderful things happen. We get to share in the lives of these incredible animals, and we see the most beautiful and magical things. But with it comes sightings like the one that we had this morning, which was incredibly difficult to watch. So I'm putting that as a bit of just a warning that you have to take the good with the bad out here. And sometimes bad and sad things do happen. It's the wild. And the joy of the live safari is that we can't script anything, we can't edit anything. We can only tell you the stories and show you the stories as we see them and as they happen. And that comes with the most amazing possibilities. You get to see cubs growing up with their mothers. And of course, our regular viewers know that occasionally that also comes with a side of heartbreak out here. It's the way that the wild works. You've got to take the good with the bad. And I'm not being patronizing, I promise. I'm just putting that out there, especially for new viewers who are joining us and getting to know, for example, spending as much time as we have over the last few weeks with that hyena den, that there will be sad times within the live safaris. There will also be magical times that you come away from feeling absolutely incredible. And I'm saying this now because I've spent years in the bush, Brian has spent years in the bush, and for both of us, that sighting that we had this morning was one of the most intense sightings we've had. And it was something that was incredibly difficult to witness and incredibly sad to see. I just wanted to put that out there. And of course, as human beings, we get very emotionally attached. And both Brian and myself felt every moment of that sighting. It was both incredible and heartbreaking to witness. Now, I'm looking forward to all of the magical moments that our live safaris have to offer. Some wonderful time spent with incredible animals. I'm going to say a big thank you to Brian for all of his fantastic camera work. as well as the fact that he put up with the rocking of the car in that sighting. It was intense. Thank you to the ladies in FC, and thank you to all of you, the viewers, for joining us and experiencing these incredible moments. Have a wonderful day wherever you are in the world. I'm going to send you back across to Steph for the last minute. Cheers, guys.
In the last closing moments of the show, we thought that we'd go and show you the woodland kingfisher that's just flown out of the nest in the tree that's just nested. They are whole nesting birds, and we thought that we'd close on that for you. And myself and Tebs have had a fantastic day. Beautiful sunrise this morning, the feelings of which are still persisting. And on that note, I just want to say thank you to all of you for all your fantastic questions, and we'll catch you again on the Sunset Safari.